Hello, I'm a newlywed who got married recently. I live with my husband and my mom. I'm an only child, and I couldn't get married leaving my mother alone. Like everyone else, my mom is a very precious person to me. It's more so because we had lived apart for a long time. Fortunately, my husband is kind and understanding, allowing my wish to have my mom live with us. My mom was dead against my idea. She said, now that I'm married, I should enjoy my new life with my husband, rather than having my mom to live with us. However, I strongly said that I wouldn't marry if she refused. Ultimately, my mother accepted to live with us. But there is a reason for my insisting. I will tell you the story now. My mom was born into a low-income family. Moreover, she was the fifth daughter of the 7 siblings. She had 4 older brothers. She had a younger brother and a sister. Under such circumstances, my mom grew up with little attention from her parents. Her older brothers received attention because sons were favored, and her younger siblings received attention because they were younger. As a fifth in line, and as the oldest daughter, my mom was left out for this and that reason, and had to grow up to help out the whole family financially. Being poor, with 7 children, her family always lacked money and needed to make plans to earn a living. Her conservative father insisted that the sons should be successful to maintain the family, and he decided to put the burden on my mom, his eldest daughter. When she was a junior in high school, her father told her to sacrifice for her siblings, being the eldest daughter in the family. He told her to quit school and go to work. At that time, my mom was attending a technical high school that taught business skills. She had plans to get a job right after graduation to earn money. However, she couldn't even do that. Among her siblings, she was the best in academics. However, due to her circumstances, she did not even dare to dream about going to college. She was sad and upset that she even had to quit the technical high school. Nevertheless, she couldn't turn away her back on her family, where her brothers needed college tuition and younger siblings required to learn the basics. She had no choice but to follow her father's order. As a result, my mom quit her high school in tears. The day after she quit, her father had arranged a place to work for her. She got hired as a maid at some CEO's family, and the employment office introduced that they pay handsomely. So, her grandfather even paid some fees and secured the job. At 18, my mom had to work as a maid, doing all kinds of hard labor, taking care of the mistress and even her children. Their daughter was attending a junior college, but she didn't study and was always playing around. They also had a son who was drafted while attending a 4-year university. She had met him briefly when he came home on a short leave. The kids were of similar age as my mom and all attended college. How envious it would have been for my mom. Still, she worked hard to support her siblings' education. She got paid for the first time in her life, but very little remained for her. Most went to pay for her brother's tuition. At a young age, my mom had to work as a maid to pay for their tuition, and my uncles were very apologetic about that later. 2 years passed, and my mom became 20. Her household skills had also improved in the meantime. She not only did chores like cleaning, doing the dishes and laundry washing, but also became in charge of making all the meals. My mom made some snacks for the CEO's daughter, and when the mistress tasted them, She liked it so much that she told my mom that she would raise her pay if she takes over the kitchen. Thanks to that, my mom was able to start saving more money, little by little. She saved the money in case she might be able to study again. However, my mom's plan met with an unexpected incident that completely ruined her plan. It was because of my dad. My dad was the son of the CEO, the one who served in the military. When my mom turned 20 years old, my dad completed his military service and was preparing to re-enter college. He showed interest in my mom shortly after he met her. For my mom, it was an unimaginable thing to happen, but my dad's romantic chase was tenacious. No matter how much my mom would avoid or reject him, he was aggressive and stubborn. My dad was kind to my mother, who treated him cold, but he tried hard, bringing her gifts and trying to earn her affection. My mom, who had never received such love and attention as the fifth child of 7, began opening up her mind to my dad, and their secret love began. They couldn't do much together but to glance at each other when passing by in the house, or chat secretly when no one was around. She was shy, but she said that was the happiest moment in her life. She liked the stories my dad told her about his college campus, listening to pop songs my dad shared, and his warm smile gazing into her eyes. My dad promised my mom that when he graduated from college, he would confess to his parents about their relationship and date openly. My mom believed my dad and started to think he would rescue her from her poverty, and started to have hope. After a year of their secret relationship, my mom felt something wrong. She suddenly felt nauseous and was throwing up while she was making side dishes as usual in the kitchen. She ran to the bathroom, grabbing the toilet to vomit, and realized that she had skipped her period that month. She became worried, but she tried to convince herself that it couldn't be. She had had a delayed menstrual cycle often, so she thought it must be so this time too. However, when she skipped her period the next month, she purchased a pregnancy tester at a drugstore. While she was waiting for a brief moment holding the tester, my mom said she had all kinds of thoughts. She prayed not to be pregnant, but contrary to her expectations, she saw clear 2 lines. My mom was devastated. The one who put her to despair was me. My mom cried and had to suffer all alone. They had not disclosed their relationship, yet she had gotten pregnant. So it was understandable. After fretting over it by herself, eventually she confessed to my dad about her pregnancy. My dad became flustered. It was understandable since he hadn't yet graduated. But he boldly stated that he would use this chance to tell his parents the truth about their relationship. My mom was very grateful to my dad for not evading their situation. Mom and Dad revealed their pregnancy to his parents and was hit with a tremendous repercussion. It was expected since their precious son suddenly had a baby with their housemaid. That day, my mom was beaten up by his mom and sister, who grabbed her hair and slapped her and suffered all kinds of humiliation. It was to the extent that she thought she might have a miscarriage. My dad protected my mom, and in tears, he begged, "Dad, please forgive us. I really love her a lot. Please give us your permission." However, it was to no avail. His mom screamed to get an abortion right away. His sister was the same. However, his dad was a little different. What are you going to do if news leaks out while she goes to the doctor for an abortion? Are you trying to ruin my business? Think rationally. First, let her have the baby. His dad was fearful of any talks leaking out that could damage his business and told my mom to have the baby. However, he had conditions. My mom was to stay indoors only until she had the baby. His dad warned sternly to don't even dream about her going out. Then, his dad contacted my grandparents explaining they couldn't send her home until the baby was born. There was a big commotion in my mom's family as well. My grandmother didn't agree that my mom should be left at my dad's house and rushed over, but she was refused to enter the house. From that day on, my mom was subject to all kinds of ridicule. Suffering from her morning sickness, she still had to do all the maid's work and had to take abuses from the rest of the family except my dad. My mom trusted my dad, but he was of no help. He would just leave the house making excuses that he should study. My dad tended to roam outside as he felt uneasy at the hostile atmosphere at home that he was responsible for. Thus, throughout her pregnancy, my mom suffered verbal abuse and loneliness as she dragged her heavy body doing all the housework. For her labor, she did not get paid anymore, but got bullied for eating a lot. After spending hellish months, finally she gave birth and I was born. As soon as she saw my face, she said that all her suffering melted away like snow. She was grateful that I was born safely without any problem under such circumstances. However, there was a big disturbance in the house. His mother was a superstitious person who believed in fortune-telling, shamanism, or tarot. She heard something from a shaman that if a daughter is born, only the baby must be kept and the baby's mother should be kicked out. Otherwise, my dad would suffer a bad omen, as my dad and my mom are poisonous for each other. Listening to such story, his mom couldn't think logically since I was a daughter. She tried to kick out my mom, but my mom wouldn't let go of me, saying that she must raise her own child. Then, my father's mom grabbed my mom's hair and abused her, pouring curses at her. That night, when everyone was asleep, my father's mom stole me from the hospital and ran home. The next morning, when my mom found out that I was missing, she ran out of the hospital despite unhealed physical condition. She went to my dad's house. However, only my mom's luggage was left in front of the gate. They had locked her out of the house. My mom knocked on the door all day long to no avail. When my uncles learned of the situation, they came to take my mom home. My mom's parents complained to my dad's parents for their unjustified behavior, but his mother, who only believed the shaman's words, wouldn't budge. After arguing for over a month, eventually, my uncles threatened to use violence if they don't release me. Then, his mom said to come to her house a week later. When my mom went to their house with my uncles a week later, the house was empty. They had rushed to move away. That's how I was stolen away from my mom, and she cried for many days and nights over my dad's betrayal. My mom's parents also moved away from their town later. My mom's dad decided to move so that they could forget the past and start a new life. My mom, who lost her baby overnight, had no choice but to follow her father's decision. I was left to be raised by such heartless people. I was deprived of my mother's milk and grew up on formula. Besides, will my dad's mom look kindly at me? Of course not. a newly hired nanny took care of me. Fortunately, the nanny was a kind person, so I grew up eating and being clothed properly. However, for as long as I can remember, my dad's mom was the worst human being. She always glared at me and abused me. In every sentence, she would say disparaging remarks at me, saying that I was born with dirty blood, or I'm like my mom with lowly status. She would say unspeakable things that not even any strangers would say. Even when I was 4 or 5 years old, she hit me with a spoon at the dinner table for not eating well. And whenever something went wrong in the household, I was to be blamed because I was an unlucky person and beat me for it. Who would have believed that a granddaughter living in a luxurious house was living in violence from her own paternal grandmother? If it were now, I could have run to the police for child abuse. But at that time, there was no such awareness in society as a whole. The only solution was to endure it. I had never once called her grandmother. It was the same for the grandfather or my dad's sister. The only person I addressed properly in that house was just my dad. At least, my dad treated me as his daughter. He would hug me and even play with me when he saw me, although not often. However, it seemed that my dad had forgotten all about my mom. He never once mentioned my mom in front of me. When I entered elementary school, and as I got older, I realized that my life was very different compared to the others. Then, I started to question it. Why don't I have a mother? And why do the rest of the family members hate me? But no one answered my questions. While growing up, I was abused and bullied, making me always walk on eggshells. But strangely, the family didn't think about kicking me out of the house. I wonder why they would hate me, yet why were they making me live with them? I found out the reason much later. I learned that it was because of a shaman's prediction that if they throw me out, a disaster would occur to them. I was shocked, so they raised me reluctantly. However, they only did the minimal, just feed, clothe, and send me to school. Starting from 9th grade, I began working to earn my own spending money. I started to work after school to start my savings. I also studied very hard. I couldn't dream of getting any private tutors, so I had no choice but to study by myself. As I reached my senior year in high school, I was accepted at the university I wanted to attend. However, none of the family members were happy to hear about it. When my dad's sister saw my college acceptance letter, "What? You to a college?" and sneered at me. In such a situation, how could I ask them for my tuition? The due date for the payment of the tuition arrived. With my savings, the amount was hardly sufficient. Then, suddenly, my dad's mother offered to pay my tuition. I was surprised. Only a day before, she was the one who told me not to even dream about it. But she changed her mind overnight and was offering to pay my tuition. However, there was a reason. If it weren't for the monk, I learned that the shaman that my dad's mom often visits said that if she doesn't support me, a disaster would occur. I was speechless. She seemed to be a person who would even die if the shaman told her to kill herself. Nevertheless, I was able to go to college thanks to that shaman. At that time, I felt like bowing even to that shaman for my gratefulness. The shaman was a disciple of the shaman who told my dad's mom to kick my mom out of their house. She thought that the previous shaman had lost her powers as she got older, so my dad's mom sought out her disciple. I felt she should just be kind rather than spending time and money worshipping the shamans. Nevertheless, I was very happy with my college life. I made many friends at school clubs and met a very friendly senior student and started dating him. That person is my current husband. I studied hard and received good grades, and after graduation, I got a job at a great company envied by others. At that time, my dream was just one: independence. I only wished to get out of that miserable household. I no longer wanted to have a life of abuse or having to feel constrained. So, I diligently saved money for my dream. You can't. How dare you say you want to leave this house? My dad's mom refused to let me leave because bad things can happen to them. I was sick and tired of that word. While being so mean, she seemed afraid of the disaster. I felt like just go ahead and do it. But since I had been so beaten and cursed from a very young age, I was conditioned to be speechless in front of my dad's mom. Without realizing it, I was cowering. I wished my dad would stand up for me, but he would always ignore these situations, just like he used to do to my mom. Then one day, when I came home from work, I saw a shaman wearing the Korean traditional clothes sitting in the middle of the living room. I greeted her and was heading to my room when the shaman suddenly stood up and started to scream at me. That bitch! Kick her out of here right now! She's overeducated and will swallow up all this family. Kick her out! The whites of her eyeballs could be seen, which brought me the goosebumps, so I ran away to my room. When the shaman left, my dad's mom came to my room an hour later. You, pack up your bags and get out of my house. It doesn't matter where you go. Right now. I couldn't believe she would change 180 degrees with just one word from the shaman. I got the results I wanted. The shaman said that because I was overly educated for a woman, I would take away all the men's energy in this household. I wondered if there were any energy left to take in this house. Anyway, that's how I packed up that night and left that house. I had 2 luggages, a backpack on my back, and a handbag in my hand. At first, I decided to go to a business hotel nearby my work. I was going to look for a place to live while staying there for a few days. As I headed out to the main street to catch a taxi, someone blocked my way. It was the shaman I saw in the living room. As if she was waiting for me, she was wearing the same outfit. Then, she just grabbed my wrist and started to drag me with her. I suddenly became scared. I told her that I would scream if she did not let me go. Then, the shaman swiftly turned to me and said, "You must follow me. I'm not the shaman you know. I have something important to tell you, so follow me." As if possessed, I followed her. The shaman took me to her place and had me sit in the room and serve me tea. I was barely drinking it, and asked the shaman why she brought me here. Then, suddenly the shaman started to cry and told me the shocking news. She said that she was my mother. I asked her what she was talking about. I told her I didn't know my mother's face. She started to cry and told me what had happened before I was born and how we became separated. Then, in her drawers, she took out my baby photos and my birth certificate, including the ultrasound photos. She had the hospital document with my dad's name on it. I was confused. However, she did not stop explaining. After she got separated from me, she used her savings to obtain a culinary license, working hard in a restaurant to save every penny. The restaurant owner liked her, and upon hearing about her unfortunate situation, provided a place to live. She was saving money to find me. However, She knew that they wouldn't release me. So she went to the shaman who said the words to cause our separation. She gave money to that shaman to help her find me. The shaman agreed to help my mom and pretended that my mother was her disciple and referred her to my dad's mom. At that time, my dad's mom was already looking for a new shaman because she thought that the shaman's power had become weaker. When my dad's mom met the shaman's disciple, she was utterly impressed with her since my mom knew every nook and cranny about her family. As the shaman introduced her as her favorite disciple, and since the new shaman seemed quite psychic, my dad's mom was satisfied that she could find no other better. My mother, in disguise, was able to visit her house from then on. Then, my mom heard about my tuition matters. She made my dad's mom pay for the tuition by acting as the shaman. My mom waited for me to graduate from college, and when my dad's mom discussed my independence, she felt the right time had come and told my dad's mom to kick me out of the house. In order to trick my dad's mom and to act as a shaman, my mother paid an enormous amount to the real shaman. Of course, the money came out of my dad's mom. When my real mother appeared suddenly, it was very difficult for me to accept her. It was hard for me to believe that she disguised as a shaman in order to find me. When my boyfriend heard this, he told me to get the DNA test. So, my mom and I took the DNA test and had to wait for a whole week for the result to come out, which I waited with great anxiety. From birth until now, I have been most hurt by my family members. I did not wish to be hurt ever again. Therefore, the DNA test was like my last hope. Finally, the day arrived, and I had the result in my trembling hands. In truth, the printed letters was not legible, but one word was visible. Matched. My mom and I matched 99.999% chance to be mother and daughter. At that moment, tears flowed. I had met my mother, who would be the only one on my side in this world. That night, I was held in my mother's arms and heard about all the years my mother had lived through. While listening to her story, we cried and laughed in the middle, and we stayed up all night as mother and daughter. I thought of my life as too harsh, but my mom's life was 100 times harsher. I couldn't imagine how my mother survived, and I felt so sorry for her. Thus, I decided to get revenge. A few days later, Mom and I went to that house. It was Sunday, so everyone was at home. Guided by the housekeeper, when we entered the living room, I could see my dad's father and mother and his sister. When my dad's mom saw my mom wearing formal outfits, she looked surprised. She thought it was someone else. Then she screamed at me why I had come back. I came here because I have a purpose. Did you think that this woman here is someone else? You're correct. She is someone else. She's my mom. The one you took away from me and kicked out. My mother. My dad's mom didn't seem to believe me. Of course, it would be hard to believe, as she paid her for several years and worshipped as the shaman. But she turned out to be her abandoned daughter-in-law. At that moment, my dad came down the stairs. My dad recognized my mom only after a slight turn of his head. How could you be here? My mom's fingertips were trembling. I held her trembling hands tight. Then, my mom took a deep breath and glared at my dad and poured out the words she had suppressed all these years. I regretted so much meeting you. You're the worst trash who has no use except for sugary empty talks. You abandoned your own child into this dump and neglected her. Then, you shouldn't have stolen the baby from me. How could a father let your own child be so abused and ignore it? Among the family, you're the worst. So, all of you, listen carefully. I will tell the courts of every abuse you had committed against me and my daughter, and get every penny for the compensation. Don't even think about lying. How do you beaten up my daughter and spat curses to such a little girl every day is all in her diary. How horrible it must have been for such a young child to record every act of violence you did to her every night and day. How could you, as humans, do such a horrendous act? Then, you shouldn't have taken her from her mom. Could you call yourselves human? Say something if you can. At my mom's heartbroken cries, no family member said anything. Then, my dad approached and started to make excuses. It's a misunderstanding. You don't know everything. I really tried to be good to our Minjong. I really didn't know my family was abusing her like that. Please believe me. My dad wanted to get out of it by himself and even sold out his family. Dad, can you cover the sky with your palm? In your eyes, do I look like a fool who can't tell any difference? What did you say when I was 10 years old and my head was bleeding from being hit by your mom? Didn't you say that when Grandma hits me, to cover my head with both of my hands? Did you or didn't you? When I heard you say that, do you know how helpless I was? Instead of fighting for me, you told me to just block the beatings well. So, this is what's gonna happen now. This time, it's you who has to block it well. I just filed a lawsuit against everyone here for child abuse. My attorney tells me that since I have written steadily in my diary, it will serve as excellent evidence to punish all of you. The diary I had written in tears will make sure to handcuff your hands. Dad, so block it well. I will watch it with my eyes wide open to see how well you block them. Hey, the boss, the mistress, and my dad's sister. Be prepared to pay for all your sins properly. Then, my mom and I left their house. As we were leaving, we could hear their voices blaming and fighting with each other. I was not surprised. They were that kind of people from birth. Soon after, my boyfriend and I got married. As I explained earlier, my mom lives with us. The court trial is still going on. My court case became known to the boss's customers that shook up his company with big losses. My dad had previously lost credits from people and had no abilities. He was living off his father's company, which was falling anyway. His mom became bedridden from her rage. My dad again ran away. My dad's sister called me on the phone, asking his whereabouts. Unlike my dad's household, I'm spending the best moments of my life. I have a trustworthy husband and my mother, who's the warmest person in this world, living together, filled with love. To make up for all the years being apart from each other, my mom and I plan to stay together from now on. Despite walking on the thorny road, my mom never gave up looking for me to the end, so I will stay with her. Thank you for listening to my long story. I hope that you all be together with your precious family and that every day is filled with happiness and warmth.